for everything I do. It's not just caffeine or whatever else you think I'm hopped up on here for these videos, but I am excited today. In fact, I don't even want to wait. I know, like normally I do this whole thing, right, where I ask for the thumbs up, the subscribe, and to tell them about all the things with DraftKings and all, but I don't want to wait. Is that okay? Can we just dive right into this thing? Can you just start the clock? Because I am so excited for two games specifically. Just start the clock so we can get to it. All right. 5 and 5. Here we go. Whoa. Right away. Yeah. Let's head to London. No, not London, Munich, right? Somewhere overseas. Right. That's where they're playing. Look, this thing should be as easy as possible for you. Okay. Let's not overthink this thing. You don't need to do much by any means. It's just Seattle winning the football game. Trust me when I tell you this, Seattle winning the football game, but there's more here. I would like to add, because there's going to be so much focus on what Seattle can or can't do, especially on the ground. I would like to add Tyler Lockett right now as a first play here. So we're going to do the Seahawks winning it and Tyler Lockett scoring. That's our first play in 5 minutes. I told you, I got a lot of things going on here in this football game, and I cannot wait as we look at this. All right, next play here, the other game that I really love. And I'm not going to hit you with the same game parlay. I'm actually going to hit you with two different ones, including a nice, juicy scratch-off ticket. Let's just start with this game as a whole. The Detroit Lions are in a lot of trouble. They can't win on the road. Their head coach can't win on the road. They can't do anything as of note. Meanwhile, the Chicago Bears, all of a sudden, they've got some things working for them, specifically their quarterback. In fact, their quarterback has as many touchdowns, 7 at home, as Detroit's quarterback has turnovers, 7 on the road this year. Not a good look, not a good sign overall. I want to push this thing because that's what we do. We push it. We push it to the limit. I think Chicago can cover this up to 6 points. So I, in turn, when I look at these and I look at them jumping 5-6 points apiece, where does the biggest jump go? -6 with the push and play. We're okay there because the Bears rout the Detroit Lions. I mentioned the turnovers. My God, it's just so bad for Jared Goff. How can you not look at this and think, well, there's an opportunity here? This is dipped a little bit, but at plus 500, I still think it's worth the play. Why? Because the Chicago Bears are going to be in Jared Goff's face, and because Dan Campbell and his offensive staff have no idea what they're doing, and because Jared Goff's not a good quarterback, and because they just don't have enough around him to alleviate pressure, and they're dealing with injury, and they lost TJ Hawkinson. I mean, come on. Oh, by the way, you could also just have somebody run a kickback. That would do it for us as well. I mean, that's the easy part, right? If you just want to knock this bet off at plus 500, just run the damn kickback, and we don't even need to worry about the defense by any means. It's an ugly football game on paper, but this is a fantastic opportunity for Chicago to keep this thing coming. Shout out to Ben Rasa, because he was the one who called this on the Odd Shop Fridays, 1 o'clock Eastern. Rasa, Laffy, Shander.
If they fight in Perth, that's going to be an all-timer.
Aren't they trying to?
Yeah.
I hope they do that.
That's going to be nuts. I am good to go whenever you find gentlemen are good to go.
I woke up just breathing straight fire in anticipation for this Tulane game. Cannot wait.
Hey, look at. Woo! No, you're good.
At least you caught it.
Yeah. All right, here we go. Saturday, 11 a.m. Eastern means college football is upon us. Here at Stokastic, we're ready to talk about all the games. We're ready to talk about No House Advantage. We're ready to talk about how to make some money today. Who better to do that than Matt Gajewski? I know you're fired up. You told me before the show, quote, I'm fired up. So I'm expecting straight lava takes from you. We're in week 11, as I can see on the screen. How do you feel about this 14-game slate?
I'm feeling good. It's a sneaky slate. We don't have the Alabamas versus Tennessees, the Georgia versus Tennessees, the big marquee games, but I think there's a lot of really fun matchups, especially for DFS. It's not just the main slate. If you guys are playing the night slate tonight, we got Wake Forest, UNC. There's going to be a lot of points on the board today, which should make for an exciting DFS product.
We see, there's a total north of 70 on the slate. We got some in the 60s. We got close games, blowouts, everything in between. I see all the regulars in chat already. You want to get us started with some likes? It always helps the show and it's much appreciated, but we're about to dive in. Let's get to it. LSU and Arkansas. We start with a good one. Competitive SEC game, 3.5-point favorites for LSU, who is playoff relevant. Never thought I'd be saying that. And they take on an Arkansas team that just lost to Liberty. Their KJ Jefferson didn't look 100%. I watched that entire game. So let's break it down. Let's start with LSU. How do you plan to attack what could be an Arkansas team running out of gas here?
Yeah, great game for DFS here. And first things first, with the quarterback position, I want to play most of the studs. And Jaden Daniels definitely falls into that elite dual threat ability in the country. He has 619 rushing yards this year. That's near the top among mobile quarterbacks. He leads his own team in rushing. And a lot of times it's just coming on scrambles. The guy has 48 scrambles this year, in addition to his designed run attempts. In 2 of the last 3 games, we're talking double-digit rushing attempts for Daniels. And you pointed it out. Everything is in play for LSU. They have the losses, but I think they're like a 70% implied chance of winning the SEC West. So if they do that and then they win against Georgia, they're probably going to the playoffs. So they're playing for everything here. They're hitting the road. But Daniels, as far as the DFS play, he's awesome. LSU is up tempo. They actually have a 50% pass rate, if you can believe it, but they do. And they take advantage of an Arkansas secondary, which is still missing pieces. I think that's going to be the case through the end of the year. So Daniels, awesome play here.
When you look at Daniels, you mentioned awesome play because he can run, as you talked about, and you play him alone? Or is there someone, Neighbors or Butte, that you want to pair with him?
Yeah, he's a unique player where you can either run him naked or stack him. Because their pass rate is still high, 50%, there's plenty of stacking options. I'm trying to limit this to Neighbors and Butte. They run a bit of a rotation beyond that. Thomas, Jenkins, Lacey, those guys are going to split, but Neighbors and Butte on the field almost every single play together. Neighbors has been a lot more efficient this year, almost 200 more receiving yards, but Butte's been more involved lately. He has at least 7 targets in 4 straight games, and they're priced pretty similarly. I expect Butte to be a little more owned than Neighbors, and I prefer Butte slightly, but if you're just trying to shave off some ownership, I think Neighbors is probably going to be your play for leverage, but I'm not trying to get any crazier than that.
Anything in this backfield that's pretty crowded with Williams, Emery, and the rest of these dudes?
Yeah, it is. The one thing I'll say, this is the showdown for the morning slate. I think Josh Williams is a pretty good play on showdown for a 14-game main slate. I don't think you need to mess with this. And for showdown, it's just a price thing. He's really cheap.
We're talking about Arkansas right now. I will say, friend of the show, loyal Stokastic viewer, Anthony Davis, who's a crusher, just dominated a showdown slate with Alex Baker himself, just gave us a very generous super chat. We appreciate you tuning in, being part of the college football community. But let's talk about Arkansas. Again, they just lost to Liberty. There's no excuse for that. I'm not sure really what's going on. Raheem Sanders is doing everything that he can in that backfield. Is this a matchup, though, we want to buy on Arkansas, or are we going to wait and see?
They're priced to play, and this offense is still exciting. They're 16th in pace, which is a bit surprising seeing Arkansas play this fast, but they are. Their pass rate, 38%, isn't really that concerning because of what you mentioned. Raheem Sanders is doing it all in the backfield. His workload has dropped a little bit. They're just willing to give Rashad Dubinion and AJ Green carries here and there, but he's still been hyper efficient, averaging nearly 22 touches per game, well into the 150s in terms of yards per game. And then you can play Jefferson. I think he's hurt, but his counting stats weren't really that affected. Sure, his efficiency was, but in an up-tempo matchup with a high total against LSU, as long as he's playing, which everything indicates he will, he's still an awesome play. You look at his designed rush attempts, he still had 6 of them last game, still scrambling. And then as a passer, he was well into the 200s. So that's right around his average this year. I'm more concerned with efficiency, but volume should be there for Jefferson. And at 6,500, if you're paying down for quarterback, I think he's your preferred option.
Anything else from this game?
He's semi-stackable, not quite to the degree that Daniels is, but you could use Hazelwood, Landers, I'm probably not going any cheaper than that. And Landers would be the preferred play at 5K, but these are just outside GPP plays.
I know this game's not on the slate, but might as well take it right now real quick. If you had to pick a quarterback, would you rather have Daniels or Drake May?
Drake May. Drake May is on FanDuel. He's a huge priority there.
Yeah, that game is out of control. And then one more general question before we dive into Missouri and Tennessee from Dean, and we appreciate this. Not many great mid-tier running backs this week. Do you anticipate having more wide receiver in that flex position than normal?
Not really. I would say, just guessing, I'm probably like 80-20 running back in flex.
Okay, there you go. So we'll talk about some of those guys that you can get in. Maybe it's Jabari Small, who looks like he is going to go here. 19.5-point favorites for the Vols, licking their wounds after getting handled by Georgia, but they're back at home. They still have a ton to play for, 57-point total. Let's start on the other side. Missouri can't even tackle the punter. They got problems all over the place. They should have won last week. They did not. What can we make? Now, you know it's a pace-up spot when you play with Tennessee. Does that put Missouri in play here?
Yeah, and they're priced to play again. So DraftKings did a great job with some of these teams that normally we can X out. And it's probably just Cody Schrader for this team, honestly. They've trimmed the fat in a lot of places on their roster, but one of the key places is running back. They're not using Nathaniel Pete at all anymore. Schrader's over 20 touches in each of the last 2 games. The strength of Tennessee's defense is up front, so it's not like he's a great match for anything, and they're 20-point underdogs. But Missouri's a run-based team. They have a 44% pass rate. This team is not trying to throw the ball even when they're getting crushed in games, so Schrader's workload is pretty secure here. At 4,500, he's an excellent paydown option. If you do want to play a receiver, the 2 guys I would look to are Dominic Lovett and Luther Burden. They're right in the same range as a guy like Boutte, so I think you can do better than these players, assuming you're not stacking Tennessee. If you're loading up on the Vol side, that's where I might look to a run back with Lovett or Burden. Otherwise, it's just Schrader.
No Brady Cook.
I just don't think you need to.
I'd agree. I mean, again, there's this is a 14-game slate. A lot of quarterbacks that are within $1,000 of that price point. Where does Hendon Hooker fall? Obviously, he's in a totally different tier. Cash viable primary target at quarterback, or is he just in a large pool of guys that you can run out there?
I think there's like a debate for 5 quarterbacks you could use in cash today up at the top. It's a great position, and Hendon Hooker's one of them. It's like Hendon Hooker, Jaden Daniels, Tanner Mordecai, maybe Dylan Gabriel, and KJ Jefferson. So Hooker firmly in that range, and I think there's kind of a top 3 with Hooker, Daniels, and Mordecai. I want to play at least one of those 3 in cash, more than likely 2. Hooker firmly in that category. 355 rushing yards, hyper efficient as a passer. He's averaging 281 yards on just 28 attempts. Tennessee's going to play at the speed of light, and they need the scorched earth approach, if you will, because they're still, they're betting favorites to make the college football playoff if they win the rest of their schedule, but they need to do it convincingly. The team total here is really high. I think you're just trying to play Hooker.
When you look at that, and certainly he's got some rushing upside. I'm going to talk about his no-house advantage line in just a little bit. I do like the over there. How many of Hyatt, Tillman, and Brew McCoy do you want with Hooker if you do deploy him?
I don't think you need any because of the rushing, but most of my lineups, I went back and looked, and he's generally stacked with at least 1. Hard to get 2 because they're all expensive. Brew McCoy is now priced up, I think mostly because he was functioning as the wide receiver 2 without Tillman. So I actually think Tillman might be the best price adjusted play here. He was very clearly the wide receiver 1 when healthy, but this does come down to health. He's now 3 weeks removed from his last absence. How healthy is he? His route share was nearly 100% last week. So I think he's still rounding into form, but that should give you confidence. Tillman's not limited. He's on the field almost every single play. If you want to pivot to Brew McCoy, he's going to be your leverage option there. And then Hyatt is Hyatt. 108 receiving yards per game on just 7.4 targets. If you've got 7.3K and want to go up and use Hyatt, can't really fault you there at all. With Jabari Small playing in the backfield, we can keep that part quick. I don't really have a lot of interest in either Wright or Small at their prices. There's just better options with more touch upside.
Oklahoma and West Virginia. We moved to the Big 12. Sooners 8-point road favorites. Healthy total in this game. Another game that's going to have some fireworks potentially. So it's just about sorting through kind of the priorities. And Dylan Gabriel is another quarterback that we have to look. He's kind of in that Hendon Hooker price range. Let's start there with a team nearing a 40-point team total. How do you get exposure to Oklahoma today as a big favorite or sizable favorite in a game with nearly a 70-point total?
I don't think people are going to play this game a lot. I think it's the sneakiest GPP game on the slate. because everybody wants to play the mobile quarterbacks. Mordecai, Daniels, Hooker, and Dylan Gabriel has some mobility, 250 rushing yards this year. That it's not like Lamar Jackson by any means, but it's far from zero. And then his stats are a little depressed because of the TCU game where he left in the second quarter. He's still been extremely efficient as a passer. Oklahoma is 5th in pace. They have a 42% pass rate, so not terrible. And Gabriel's price has finally come down. He's not 9,500 like he was earlier in the season. He's actually a little cheaper than most of the guys we're talking about here. And I don't think he's going to come anywhere near their ownership. Love stacking him. The question is, who do you use? I think you can use Mims. He's just been volatile like he's been throughout his career. Last 3 games, target counts of 15, 6, and 5. So obviously, if you stack him, you're hoping you hit one of those 15 target eruption spots. But fortunately for Mims and really the entire passing game, West Virginia has a bottom 5 secondary in the country. Not an exaggeration. They're legitimately like 126 out of 131. Outside of Mims, it's a little tough. They benched both Jaleel Farouk and Theo Wees in favor of Drake Stoops, who had a 100% route rate last week. I cannot believe Drake Stoops is on the field for 100% of routes. But I mean, if he's out there for that many routes in a shootout, we need to be looking at Drake Stoops. Outside of Mims and Stoops, I would probably go to the tight end Braden Willis. He's the only other player with a locked-in route share that you can actually bank on.
On the other side, you mentioned West Virginia's got serious problems in their secondary, but they can score a little bit. They have a quarterback who is not a dual threat, so that makes it a little more difficult. But how do you think that they attack Oklahoma? Is it on the ground? Is it through the air? And I mean, they still have a very healthy team total here.
They try to be a pass-first team. They're like a pseudo air raid offense, not quite to that degree, but 56th in pace, 53.5% pass rate. You're right about Daniels. His negative rushing yards take him out of play here, especially at 6,700. He's more than KJ Jefferson, which is crazy. They use a timeshare in the backfield. Tony Mathis is back this week, so there's not really too much value there. But because they throw the ball so much, you can walk into some PPR value with some of these receivers. They've sort of been using 4 receivers now, almost every play, because their tight end got hurt earlier this year. Bryce Ford Wheaton's the number 1 on paper, but he's actually tied for targets with Caden Prather over the last 4 games. And Sam James leads the entire team over the last 4 games in targets. Prather randomly had like a 55% route rate game last week. No injury to my knowledge. So I don't know if he's in the doghouse or what it is. He's been really inefficient this year. I still think he's going to be on the field most of the time, but that does add some risk to Prather. I'm probably just going to go to Sam James in this range because he's actually been like locked into a role of late. And Reese Smith randomly popped up for like a 75% route share last week. He's typically the wide receiver 4 in a rotational role, but big step up in routes for him. If you're just looking for a punt, he's not going to be owned by anybody.
Anything else from this game? Again, you already said this, but I couldn't agree more. For a 68-point total, I feel like this game is not getting that much buzz and that much love. And that could really, if this goes over the total, certainly be one we want exposure to.
Yeah, both these defenses are horrible.
Terrible.
Horrible. Last guy, Eric Gray. I think they want to use him in a timeshare. He just has had these monster workloads because everybody's hurt. For a couple games, Marcus Major was out. And then the week Major returns, Javonte Barnes is out. The last time they had Javonte Barnes, both Barnes and Gray had 21 touches. So I'm a little hesitant with Gray up there. I think he presents a little more risk than some of the other backs, but the upside's there in this matchup.
Not near the 20 points less expected here with Virginia Tech and Duke. Duke, what a world. Duke is a 9.5-point favorite at home, and they should be. It's a tough times for Virginia Tech. Their offense has serious issues. I've said that a lot already, and we're only 4 games in, but they do. Is there anyone on Virginia Tech that we want to talk about here?
Caleb Smith, maybe as a one-off, he's just their leading receiver. He averages 72 yards per game in this horrible offense. It's him or pass for me on this team. I don't want any part of their backfield. I don't want Grant Wells. Pretty easy evaluation for VT, just a one-off Caleb Smith or leave it alone. I'm not sure I have any Virginia Tech in my player pool. Duke is a little more interesting, though.
Yeah, I mean, again, Duke of this game, certainly they're expected for this majority of points, and their quarterback is way more dynamic. Riley Leonard can move. There's no doubt about it. 7,900 is a reasonable price point. It's more of an opportunity cost, in my opinion, of just how do you get exposure to all these talented quarterbacks? Where does he fit in that priority list going up against, Gabriel and Hendon Hooker and some of those guys?
Opportunity cost, I think, is the right word. If you spend 200 more, you can get Tanner Mordecai, who we'll talk about. Yeah. But Leonard has a great ceiling. I mean, he nearly has 600 rushing yards this year. That's phenomenal. He leads his team. And then you can actually like stack him at times too, because he's so efficient as a passer. It's a low volume offense, but he's like KJ Jefferson light, if you will. He doesn't look like KJ Jefferson. He doesn't run like KJ Jefferson, but their stats aren't too different. The issue is price. So I don't have a lot of Leonard, and I think he's a terrifying fade, honestly, because his upside is so high. And if you're running optimals, you're probably going to get a little of him. You're going to get a little of Jalen Calhoun, their alpha receiver too. But I'm trying to limit Duke exposure because the total in the game is so low. Virginia Tech actually has a good defense. It's the only good part of their team. So it's tough with a 14-game slate. Otherwise, I'd have a lot of interest in Riley, but I think I'm going elsewhere.
Yeah, it seems like Calhoun is the only reasonable guy that you can pair up with Riley Leonard. You're not going to go to that backfield unless you're seeing something that I'm not. It seems like it's Leonard and Calhoun, and that's the extent of what we need to talk about for Duke.
Yeah, their wide receiver 2 is labeled as a QB on DraftKings, so it really takes him out of play.
That's a tough scene. Poor guy.
I know. No one can play Jordan Moore on DraftKings unless it's Showdown.
No, or you'd be very bold, but please don't do that. All right. Anything else from this game, or can we move on?
We're good.
All right, here we go. Talked about it earlier in the show. No House Advantage powers this very show. And if you haven't been over there, if you're looking to build the bankroll, if you're looking to add another site, this is the spot for you. A dynamic fantasy sports platform, one that I know a lot of people have tried out. A lot of different options. You can test your skills versus the house. You can 20x your entry if you hit all your picks. You're projecting over or under on various players and various stats. And the tools that we have help you to do just that. They've got options. We talked about Hendon Hooker. We've got the Ole Miss game over there. All these type of players that we can really look to break down. It's the same concepts that you're doing here when you're talking about DraftKings or some of the other sites. And of course, if you're going to go over there, take advantage of the free money. Get up to $50 first match deposit bonus with No House Advantage when you use the promo code Stokastic. We've got it up on the screen. It's very simple. You see those over-unders, you string them up, you get your payday if you hit them. And we have the tools and the projections right on the site. A really fun platform. The overlay is massive. We talk about that on the NFL show. Go over there with your $50 and try it out. See what you think. That's always the move. You want to stick around, that's fantastic. You say that's not the site for you, at least you tried it out. You got your money and you gave it a shot. So can't recommend that more. Yeah, you got Tillman, Daniels, a lot of good options over on No House Advantage, and we'll be talking about them throughout the show. Not with this game, though, because this game is terrible. Purdue and Illinois, 6.5-point favorites for Illinois coming off a terrible loss, 44.5-point total. Purdue's also coming off a terrible loss, but I think we would both give them a pass. The weather in the Iowa game really screwed everything up. Somehow it made Petrus better. That doesn't even make sense, but it really hurt O'Connell. Do we buy low here? Do we respect Illinois' defense enough to stay away?
We respect it enough. It's reflected in the total. Purdue at just 19 implied points. I think there's 2 players we can talk about from this game. Nobody's going to play Charlie Jones at 8,100, but holy smokes, this guy's volume is insane. 18 targets last week. He hasn't seen fewer than 15 targets in 3 straight games. He's averaging 105 receiving yards per game this year. You can play him as a one-off. His volume is just that good. And on the other side, Chase Brown's in the exact same situation. His volume is absolutely insane this year. Chase Brown's last 4 games, 37 touches, 44 touches, 35 touches, and 35 touches. It's unbelievable. It doesn't matter who he plays. Doesn't matter if he's efficient or not. This volume is unbelievable. And lucky for everyone, he is really efficient. So Chase Brown, can't fault him in any matchup. He's just rock solid. He should be 10K.
Does that mean that he just is a plug and play in cash?
Yeah, I think so.
Okay. And then the thing about him too, like, and they're a favorite, but like, even if they get phased out, it's not like they abandon him. Like, he will get his touches in any game script. Doesn't matter. As safe as they come. Charlie Jones, you mentioned, I mean, they go to him early and often. I'm sure you can, obviously, but do you anticipate getting to both of them in the same lineup without either of the QBs and just having like 2 alpha one-offs in the same game?
I don't have that in any, but I think it's viable. You could do it.
Is there any secondary pay down options from these teams, or is it really we're talking about 2 superstars and that's about it?
I personally didn't consider anybody else.
You don't want any of the Illini vaunted passing attack?
They rotate 4 guys. It's tough. Like even
bad.
Isaiah Williams, their target leader, his route share is like 75%.
Yeah, there's really not much. I mean, this is an ugly game. Obviously, the total speaks to it. You have a feel on the betting side? I thought it was a pretty tough game. I didn't bet it.
I did not bet it either.
Question from Travis Hill. We appreciate this. We're always looking for some value. Are there a couple guys on DraftKings in terms of the pay down options that you say, okay, this is some massive value? Is it Trader from Missouri? Is it someone else that you see?
Yeah, there's actually a couple running backs. I think Schrader's one of them. Cartevious Norton for Iowa State, who we'll talk about, is viable as a value play. At receiver, I think you're looking at SMU. You've got Dylan Goffney. You've got the tight end RJ Maryland. Jordan Curley's pretty cheap. That's where I would focus on for value.
Yeah, it's certainly the SMU, and we're going to get there in just a second. I am in line with that. All right, here we go. Now it's getting serious. Indiana's on the slate. 39.5 point underdogs. That could be a problem for them. Now, Ohio State, maybe you get some garbage time. Indiana's had a tough year. They've had some injuries. They play crazy fast going into the shoe. What do we do with Indiana, given that they're legitimately a 6-touchdown underdog?
X them out.
Really? Okay. That was pretty simple. There's nothing we can do?
I don't think so. Like their quarterback play is so bad that even the efficiency hasn't been, or excuse me, even the volume hasn't consistently been there for these guys. Now that Cam Campers, he's out because he tore his ACL. The only way you can consider an Indiana player is if you're loading up on Ohio State, you're playing some sort of Ohio State stack, and you are required to have Indiana keep this somewhat close because you want the Ohio State guys to play the whole game.
If that was the case, would it be like Emery Simmons? Would it be a back?
It would be Simmons or AJ Barner, their tight end. Barner because of price, Simmons because he's their projected wide receiver 1 right now.
On the other side, obviously, just for reference, Indiana's team total is 8. That's a problem. It's not good. It's very, very bad. Ohio State, massive favorite. It's a little more than that, but still, they have, nearly a 50-point implied total. We know that they're going to score, but is it a case where no one consolidates enough to be, tournament winning? Or is it the opposite where it's like, you just want to go to Stroud and say he might throw 6 or 7 touchdowns and try to solidify the Heisman?
Yeah, great GPP game. I think you just want pieces of this if you're playing multiple lineups. If you're playing like cash or something, probably just Mayan Williams. I think Mayan Williams is viable in cash because no Trevion Henderson. And then one of their backups, Chip Trayanum, who's a converted linebacker. He actually played running back at Arizona State last year. He's a game time decision here. So at the very least, we know he's dealing with something. So they're really thin at running back. Mayan Williams should have 12, 15 carries at least. And the efficiency should be through the roof on those carries. So he's solid. I think you can honestly play some Dallin Hayden today. And that's because of the injury to Trayanum. They just don't have anybody in the backfield behind these guys. So 32 Dallin Hayden's not the craziest thing in the world. Stroud, you're stacking him for sure if you're playing him because he can't run. And there's very clear stacking options. Harrison and Ibuka are like 1A, 1B, very close. And then you have Fleming as the wide receiver 3, Stover's the tight end. I think you can mix and match these guys in hopes that en route to what should be utter domination here, like you get concentrated production in the short time these guys are on the field.
If you do go to Stroud, I assume you're saying you got to load up, and he's not running the ball. So you're looking for 2 pass catchers with him?
Yeah, if I'm playing Stroud, I am.
Okay, I would agree with that. I think you really have to embrace the full stack there because the only way he gets there, he's going to need 400 yards and 5 touchdowns, and he can do that. They can name their score. You just have to hope that it's through the air and not with Williams on the ground.
Yeah, they could do that in a half.
It's true. Ryan Nelson. Temple students finally got to celebrate. They got to celebrate twice. They stormed the court twice last night against Villanova. Villanova also took 7 3-pointers in a game. Never seen that before in my entire life. Very, very odd things. They need to get healthy, but that's not really pertinent because Temple, they do play football, but you wouldn't know. And Villanova is in the FCS. Notre Dame and Navy, 40.5 point total. So this is pretty bad. This is as low as it gets. And Notre Dame is the team that's supposed to get the majority of those points. They manhandled Clemson last week. They whooped them in the trenches. Really impressive. This is a totally different look, though, what does a game environment like this, where you have a team on the other side looking for 8 to 10 minute drives, do to the Notre Dame attack? And does it make guys like Mayer even playable?
Mayer's the only receiver I would look at, and unfortunately, he's really expensive. You really want to limit exposure to this game, so we can keep this one pretty quick. I think it's a one-off Mayer if you're so inclined, or you can play one of the backs, because you talk about Navy's high run rate. Notre Dame's not too far behind, honestly, at this point in the year. Audric Estime and Logan Diggs are the guys you look at. They're phasing out Tyree a little bit. Diggs is a little cheaper, so I actually do have some Diggs in my player pool today. He's an excellent pivot off like your Schraders and some of the other guys. He shouldn't be owned at all, so I think that's fine. Unfortunately for Navy, we just had a bunch of really cool Armed Forces celebrations yesterday. Navy's not really playable in DFS on 14 game slates because of their offense. They don't throw the ball, so you can't play any receivers automatically. Their starting quarterback is hurt, so they're deploying 2 guys. And they started using, it's not really a rotation, but they're kind of flip-flopping between Daba Fofana and Anton Hall as, I don't want to call it their lead back, but like their fullback position, which is the focal point of the offense. So I don't think you can play any Navy, unfortunately.
Even those backs, I mean, they're hovering around, say, 4K. It's just too much opportunity cost.
And we don't know which one it's going to be. For reference, Daba Fofana, 21 carries, 20 carries, 24 carries, 8 carries. Anton Hall was hurt a little bit earlier this year. He came back, 8 carries, 16 carries. They've kind of flip-flopped games, so I don't even know which one it's going to be.
Yeah, I mean, you mentioned the size of these slates make it really difficult for the academies. It's even worse when it's a team, for some reason, if they put Air Force on this and they're, 20-point favorites over New Mexico, you can say, okay, Roberts or Co., maybe they get there. Navy's a sizable dog in this spot. There's a chance they don't score more than 1 touchdown in this game. That does make it difficult. I assume, not to go backwards, but like you have no interest in Pine, right?
No.
Okay. I like to check.
For sure. I understand. Got to cover all our bases.
Got to cover all the bases. Who are the cheap running backs on FanDuel? That's going to be interesting.
Elijah Green.
Okay, there you go. I mean, I do think a lot of people are going to do that on FanDuel. They're going to look to stack the UNC game and try to pay down at the backs, which makes sense. I'm totally on board with that.
I don't know if KJ Jefferson's playing today.
What?
Yeah, there's a lot of conflicting reports. He's not throwing right now.
Well, I'm not going to spend too much time on this.
Obviously, you don't play him, I think.
Well, no, but I want to take it one step further. If he doesn't play, do you think it's Malik Hornsby, or do you think there's a combination with the other guy whose name escapes me?
Cade Fortin. I don't know. I think it's probably mostly Hornsby, but I have no idea.
I am a huge Malik Hornsby fan. I think that guy is super electric, and I hope they give him the keys to this offense. But that's something to keep an eye on. So you would pull Jefferson exposure?
I'm looking right now. The beats are on it. Like, a lot of people are tweeting about this. So I think we'll probably get news here shortly.
Ooh, all right. Well, we're going to keep it moving.
There's like 18 people tweeting about it.
And we're going to get to that question about Rice right now, because we're on the SMU game. Now this gets serious. SMU 17.5 point favorite against USF. The old 72.5 point total. SMU last week, I was doing other things, and I looked at the box score, and I said once again that ESPN is just spewing nonsense, because it said that Mordecai had 7 touchdowns at halftime. Turns out that wasn't fake news. That was true. Houston is Houston, and this game was out of control. Video game numbers from SMU. They get another dream matchup here. You mentioned Mordecai a little while ago when we were talking about, I believe, like Riley Leonard or one of those guys. He's $8,100. You got to like this matchup for him and everything he can do, not just through the air, but on the ground.
Yeah, he's the best play on the slate. You laid it out well already. I don't really have anything to add. He averages over 300 yards passing. He can run. Total's high. USF has one of the worst defenses in the country. He's stackable. He's efficient. He's priced to play. He's in cash. Like, he's the first guy in your lineup. The only thing to navigate in tournaments is he's going to be high owned. So think about that. There's alternatives to him, but he's the single best play on the slate.
Let's get running back out of the way here. Do you want any exposure to the SMU backfield?
This is a really tough position to navigate. They do not use a consistent player. They use up to 5 players in the backfield. I don't think Siggers plays today, so he should not be in consideration. They do have Velton Gardner, Tyler Levine, TJ McDaniel, and Kamar Wheaton. More or less because of injuries, they've had to force feed one or two of these guys, and it's been different guys on a week-to-week basis. A lot of projection systems are giving you Tyler Levine at 3,400. I would be hesitant. Kamar Wheaton is back today. He was sick in their last game, didn't play. The week before, Velton Gardner had 18 carries. Somebody's probably going to have an awesome game here. I would just be hesitant to lock in Tyler Levine and assume it's him. It very well could be, but this has been a revolving door the entire year. It's not a situation that I think you can definitively peg down.
And let's move to the outside. We know Rashee Rice, he's in the Charlie Jones alpha category. This guy's a machine on the outside, and you tap into this game. If you use Mordecai, can you allocate another $8,400 to pair him with his stud receiver?
Oh, yeah. There's value for days in the slate. You could play Rashee Rice. I think you might honestly want to consider them both in cash. Rashee Rice is averaging 117 yards per game on 13.6 targets. He has a 35.5% target share. I think one of the reasons why you're not locking Charlie Jones because of his roles, you've got Rashee Rice on the slate for just 300 more, who is without a doubt a better play.
You mentioned Goffney at the flat min. Curley is down there. I mean, how many is too many with Mordecai, or are these just like one-off centric wide receivers?
So this is another position that's not consistent. They'll rotate their receivers down here. Last week, the number 2 in terms of routes was Jordan Curley. He had 5 targets. His route rate was up above 75%. Goffney was at 48. Goffney had the second highest route share, or I guess I should say third, because we'll include Rice in this discussion. It was Rice 1, Curley 2, Goffney 3, and Goffney wasn't even at 50%. So once you get down below those top 2 guys, it's very volatile. And I wouldn't even pencil in Curley like definitively for that route share. It's been ebb and flow with him all season long. The one guy who's really interesting to me is tight end RJ Maryland. It's been a 2-way timeshare at tight end all season long, not 12 personnel. It's like when RJ's not on the field, Ben Redding's on the field, except Ben Redding is now out for the year. They really haven't used a third tight end, and I don't know if they will. So there's a chance RJ Maryland has a big step up in routes today. Again, it's just projection. I don't know that this occurs. But at 3,500, if he's on the field more, he becomes very interesting as well.
Going to Rice one more time before we go to USF. If you were in the flex and you had Rice or Chase Brown, where do you think you would go?
Say that again?
In the flex, Rice, the wide receiver for SMU, or Chase Brown?
Chase Brown.
The volume is just so good. It's hard to push back on that. Talk about the other side. USF, the soon-to-be Fighting Scott Frosts. But until that's official, we'll just call them USF. They're in a great game environment. Now, they're the team that's supposed to get beat down. But are they just maybe a run back in an SMU stack? Or is there some merit to stacking USF and running it back with like Rice?
I think you can use some of these guys. I got one share of Travis Marsh. I debated just Xing it out, and ultimately I decided to just ride with it because the total in the game is so good. SMU's defense is awful too. So Travis Marsh doesn't really have a sample size at all. He's a completely unknown. I'm not too optimistic. I mean, he got beat out by Gary Bohannon, but you could do crazier things on this slate. They do have a lead back in Brian Batty. He has a pretty good workload. You just hope he doesn't get absolutely throttled by game script here. In certain games, he has single-digit carries, but when they're playing competitively, he's going to touch the ball 20 times. Xavier Weaver, I think, is a solid play here. He's 5,900, but he averages 82 yards per game on 10 targets. The efficiency should rise in this matchup. It's a terrible defense for SMU. And then Jimmy Horn's the 2. I think Yusuf Terry is going to be the 3. He was injured through portions of this year, but he came back. His route rate was above 70% last week. He's the stone min. I'm going to play a little bit of Yusuf Terry.
This is a game that it seems like no matter what, you're going to look to have some exposure to.
Absolutely.
Yeah. One of the best, if not the best games on this slate. All right. We got more games. We still got plenty to break down, but I do want to talk about BetMGM. We've talked a lot about ways to make some money, and we've talked about a lot of the tools, the projections, your premium article, the ownership, all the things that make Stokastic great, not just for college football, but for all the sports. If you want 2 free months of all of it, the Stokastic Plus Platinum, one of the ways to do that is actually to just register at BetMGM Sportsbook and make your first wager. You're still going to get the promo from BetMGM in terms of the risk-free. We have everything you need in the description of this video. We have it right in chat because of our man Mike behind the glass. You click that link, you go in, you deposit, you do what you do, you make your risk-free bet, all that. In addition, BetMGM is going to give us your information. You're going to get 2 free months of Stokastic plus Platinum. It is that simple. 2 months of all the tools that make this site great. And we really encourage you to take advantage. It's not going to be there forever. We're actually dropping it to 1 month. That's the truth. Soon enough. So if you want to do this, now would be the time. And it's a great site. I bet on BetMGM. Can't recommend it more. All the things we do over at Odd Chopper. BetMGM centric for sure. Bama and Ole Miss. 11.5-point favorite for Alabama. Mississippi, good record. Not really tested though. 65.5-point total. What do we do with Alabama? I mean, outrageous game with LSU last week. The receivers you've mentioned, things that you said. Go check out Betting You just to get his Burton thoughts. Let me tell you, people, very intense. Where do we go with Bryce Young? Where do we go with Gibbs? What do we do with Alabama here?
With Alabama, I mean, we want to play them. The team total's high, game total's high. Another shootout that might not draw a ton of ownership with everybody on SMU. So I definitely want pieces of this game. I think the easiest place to get a piece is Jahmyr Gibbs. He's expensive, but there's enough value to play him. It just comes down to, would you rather play Gibbs or Corum or some of the other elite backs up in this range, Chase Brown? So a bit of opportunity cost, but Gibbs, he's tied for the team lead in targets. He's averaging nearly 7 targets per game over the last 4. It's as close to the Christian McCaffrey role as we're going to get in college football right now, outside of like Chase Brown, but Chase Brown's is mostly coming on the ground. Like the receiving role for Gibbs is so good. So definitely want to play some of him. I will be stacking some Bryce Young. I prefer the cheaper dual threats to him just straight up, but for tournaments and accessing upside, Bryce Young definitely has it. They've trimmed the fat a little bit at receiver recently. Ja'Cory Brooks, he played on almost every single snap last week, 15 targets, which is the right play. He's been their most efficient receiver. They're starting to use more JoJo Earl, who started the year injured. He's a potential cheaper option, but honestly, instead of Earl, I'm probably just going to lock in tight end Cameron Latou if I'm looking for a cheap Alabama pass catcher. He's on the field almost every snap. Only 4.6 targets per game on the year, but if you're looking for just a double stack with Bryce Young and you need a cheaper option, Latou would be the guy I go to. All the other guys rotate to some degree. Even Jermaine Burton, who they continue to give snaps, he's starting to see some reduction. So it's hard to get to anybody else.
On the other side of this game, again, your schedule is your schedule, but Ole Miss hasn't been tested like they're going to start getting tested. And we know that this is a team that relies on the run. I'm not sold on what they're doing through the air. And we're going to see here, I'm a huge fan. He's awesome. Given the slate, a 14-game slate with all the options, where does a guy like Judkins at flat 7 fit in for you?
Judkins is fine. You can play Judkins. I don't really anticipate them changing their style too much. Their pass rate will rise if this plays to the spread, but this is still a run-first team. Their pass rate's below 40%. They have crazy play volume. They're 3rd in the country in pace. So there's just so much raw volume that Judkins can have, even in a game where they're losing. And Judkins isn't a bad pass catcher either. 2 games ago, he had 4 targets. So we haven't necessarily seen him in a lot of negative game script this year. It's really just LSU, but he can play in the pass game too. I think Judkins is absolutely fine if you're looking for a pivot in this range. And again, this game is awesome. It's a crazy game environment. Nobody's going to play Judkins. The main worry with him is Zach Evans has been injured. It was previously a 50-50 timeshare. I don't know if that's going to be the case ever again because of how good Judkins has been. Even when they're both healthy, Judkins is more efficient than Evans. So this should be more of like a 70-30, 60-40 split. And it appears they're going that direction. He outcarried Zach Evans 32-8. I think the injury was at least a factor in that, but Judkins is ahead of Evans right now.
Any Jackson Dart interest?
Not really. Don't know what to do with KJ Jefferson. I might pivot some of that to him because the game environment's so good and he's really mobile and he has a lot of designed rush attempts, but I'm still trying to get definitive word on KJ Jefferson. I think I'm going to pivot some of that to Dart though.
Yeah, it says, the chat said Hornsby getting first team reps.
It's conflicting. I see some people saying Jefferson is throwing a little bit, but I don't know. I'll say this. I would be pessimistic Jefferson plays.
Yeah, and I believe that was Hornsby who took over at Jerry World. Do you like, I do want to just touch this very quickly. Do you like Raheem Sanders more if KJ sits?
I think the whole offense probably is in for a reduction in efficiency.
I'd agree with that.
I guess probably not. I mean, the volume might go up, but
Yeah, but
Like
the efficiency, I think, goes down. So
Hornsby is really mobile, so maybe it doesn't even go up. They might just use Hornsby on a lot of design stuff.
super mobile. He's electric. I love that guy. Bama can't stop rushing QBs. This is true. I'm just not sure exactly what Dart's going to give you through the air. Like guys like Mingo, Heath, I don't really see it, to be honest, Dio.
The volume is decent. Like it's not a run for, or it is a run first team, but they throw it, or excuse me, they run so many raw plays that you're going to get decent volume for these guys. But I think it's price, and I'm in agreement with you. I would rather get other guys than play some of these Ole Miss receivers. I think the best thing you could say is no one's going to play him.
If we get confirmation it's Hornsby, do you think he's worth a dart throw?
Yeah, he's really mobile. He's a sick athlete. I'm going to play some Hornsby if hopefully we get news on this like in 5 minutes or something, so I can actually make some changes.
All right, well, let's keep it moving. Let's talk about what we got going on. We have one more question. Are Levine and Wheaton going to split the carries?
No idea.
Yeah, that's a tough one.
They have before. And it's not just them. They have 2 other backs they might use.
Crowded situation. Who was the Ohio State running back? Trainum is a little banged up, so we think Hayden could get the lion's share behind Mayan Williams.
Yes.
Iowa State and Oklahoma State, 49-point total. Cyclones slight favorite. Oklahoma State, the wheels have fallen off their season. Spencer Sanders has been hurt. Do we have confirmation on who's under center today?
No, but I wouldn't anticipate seeing Sanders. There were rumors that he's out for the year. Rumors. So take it for what it's worth.
So what does that do to the Iowa State side? It's not a great, game environment, but Oklahoma State's defense has definite issues.
Yeah, we're seeing the Sanders news reflected in the total 48.5. So they're not expecting much production, especially from the Oklahoma State side. Iowa State still implied for 25. It's not terrible. They throw the ball a lot, so there's potential just raw PPR volume. Deckers, I had a little more consideration early in the week, but we've just had other value open up where I don't really think it's necessary to play him. He's not mobile. He just needs basically a 300-yard bonus. Cartevious Norton's the guy I really want to talk about here because Jarrell Brock got hurt last week. Eli Sanders didn't play a single snap. And then once Brock went down, Cartevious Norton outtouched Deion Silas 25-6. Cartevious Norton was hurt earlier this year. He's a freshman for them, a dynamic freshman. It appears they're trying to get him more work down the stretch here.
I mean, it's very, very possible. Like, as you mentioned, it's just a 49-point total in this game. What else is there really to mention with these two teams, if anything?
I think the raw PPR volume for Hutchinson keeps him in play, kind of like a Charlie Jones. 106 yards per game for him, 14 targets per game. He has a 36.5% target share. It is the exact same as Charlie Jones. If you just want to play the target magnet for Iowa State, you can. But it's not just him that benefits. Like Dimitri Stanley is averaging 6 targets per game at 3,800. Jalen Noel, 7.8 targets per game at 4,900. They're all playable, but I think the upside is questionable to your point.
And that doesn't, so you're not anticipating paying down for Deckers then?
I think I did in one lineup.
Okay. Fair enough.
He's on the afternoon slate, so I'll probably play more of him there.
Yeah, it looks like Jefferson is a no-go.
Oh no, KJ's out.
KJ is out. Light snow just started to fall in Columbus. That's very shady. It's not gonna make a difference in the game, but maybe it does slow. Stroud can't catch a break. He played in a hurricane last week. Poor guy for his Heisman. All right, couple quick questions, and we'll get to we have 4 games left. Best running back under 4.7 on DK other than Schrader.
Say that again.
4.7K running back or less, but it can't be Schrader.
Or Cartevious.
Okay. Yeah. Anything better should jump on that LSU. Yeah, I do lean a little more to LSU. Certainly at 3, but you're not going to find 3 anymore. Louisville and Clemson. Yeah, you already have it. Clemson, touchdown favorite, back in Death Valley. They haven't lost at home in 6 years. But I bet them, so you never know what could happen here. 52-point total. Malik Cunningham. I mean, an absolute, when you think of dual threat, come on now, he's unbelievable, but he does have an interesting and difficult matchup in some regards. 7,600. Is he lost on this slate, or is it a name we need to take notice of?
The upside is undeniable with him. Elite dual threat, but it's just alternatives. He's not going to be owned because there are just better plays based on totals and volume and efficiency. He hasn't been great as a passer. I don't think it's too much of a fault of his own. He lost most of his major pass catchers last year, but ultimately you can still play him if you're just looking for leverage.
Yeah, I mean, listen, the upside is undeniable. I still respect Clemson's defense. I don't know why after what Notre Dame did to them, but this is at home and it's a little different. Are you running him alone, or is there anyone else on Louisville we want to talk about?
Braden Smith is cheap. I would look more at him if we get news that Amari Huggins-Bruce is out. He's been injured, so that's just something to watch, but probably not.
Anything for Clemson? The quarterback situation has been in flux. Shipley is Shipley. Antonio Williams. I mean, what do they do to win this game in a game that they have to have here?
I have no idea. They're not coherent on offense at all right
really
now.
Not.
They're whimsically deciding who plays quarterback at various points in the game, not basing it on merit or previous performances. So I don't know who plays quarterback. That's a huge issue for the entire offense. Will Shipley, maybe you could use, but they're insistent on using some Phil Maffa, and Kobe Pace is back today. So I think he's very clearly behind some of the other quarterbacks on the slate.
Is Norton, where is this question? I just lost. Is Norton a top running back value in your opinion?
Yeah, he's a good value.
Cash viable?
Yeah.
Because we had a question about cash plays, and certainly Chase Brown, I think, is in there. You mentioned Norton, some of the pay downs. I'd go get Mordecai if I could, and one of the other quarterbacks. KJ Jefferson would have been in that conversation, but he's not there. I don't think you should use Hornsby in cash. I think he's limited to tournaments at best. I'm not confident that's what you get, even though he can really run.
Yeah, agreed.
Nebraska and Michigan, the old 30-point underdogs for Nebraska. Nice job, boys. In Ann Arbor, 49-point total. Trey, I mean, what is there to say about Nebraska? They're in a really bad spot here.
Don't play any of them.
Okay, goodbye. Sorry, Trey Palmer. On the Michigan side, we actually had a very interesting question. I think the answer is no, but I love the question. Do you think there's any merit to playing both of the Michigan running backs together in a lineup?
You can do it in tournaments. We've seen it done before. And like way back in the North Carolina days where you had both Michael Carter, and the name escapes me because I'm doing a lot of other stuff on the back end, but
Javonte Williams.
Yeah, thank you. We've seen it happen before.
Is there anything like Schoonmaker or just something for Michigan on the outside? We know they're going to score. We know they're going to win. I don't know if they cover, but they're going to have a good day here. JJ McCarthy seems like a bridge too far, but maybe he's not. Maybe there's more than meets the eye here.
I'm really hesitant on McCarthy. He always projects decent because their team totals are really high, but we know that he's just a glorified game manager and they don't throw the ball much. Like they really need Nebraska to keep this competitive if he's going to see any volume, and that stems to his receivers. So just Schoonmaker because of price, but not too interested. The backs are both elite plays at their price. You can play both backs.
No doubt. That's the focal point of the offense. The backs are firmly in play. Maryland and Penn State. Maryland's a 10.5-point dog in Happy Valley, 57-point total. We had a question about Hemby earlier in the show. I want to hear your thoughts there. And then just on Maryland in general, is this a team we want to target, or are they on the outside looking in?
Outside looking in for me, Raheem Jarrett's injured, so we don't know if he's going to play, which is a huge issue for this team. Hemby, they've rotated backs before. They've been dealing with an injury to Littleton, I believe.
Yep.
Sorry, there's a lot going on. And
yeah, Littleton for sure.
Yeah, so that has been an issue for them that they haven't really figured out what they're going to do. So on a week-to-week basis, it fluctuates with them. I would not play a lot of Hemby because of it.
You also have Ramon Brown in that backfield who's cannibalized some of it. And I'm not sure exactly what you want to do there. I think it's a tournament-centric play. You mentioned that Jarrett injured last week. I don't really like much of Maryland today. I think they play to around their team total, and I'm not sure anybody taps in to major upside. But I do want to ask you on the Penn, before we get to our last game, and we'll get in a couple questions, don't worry. I want to ask you about Penn State. They're kind of almost in the Clemson-esque situation at quarterback at times. Obviously, Singleton's a stud, but again, it's not his backfield. Are all these timeshares making it really difficult to get to them?
Yeah, these are GPP plays because there's a path to a monster ceiling if, one of them gets the work. We just flat out don't know if it will occur, who it will be. in those instances. So I'm not playing any Penn State because of it. Tough to get to these guys.
It really is. And this is a game, like I said, I don't really love. All right, questions. Do you like a 3 running back or 4 wide receiver build this week on DK? I think 3 running backs is totally fine.
Yes.
Yeah. Adrian Martinez versus Baylor tonight. I don't know. That's a weird game. He's been banged up. Sam Hartman versus UNC is a kill spot. That's the game you want to target for sure. Him and Drake May, fantastic spot. Not as high on the Kansas State side. Dallas Hayden cash consideration. I think that's a little thin. Do you, or do you think he is cash viable?
I agree with you.
Yeah, he could get some run tournaments, but it's hard to target a backup like that just because, there's a lot of ways where he just doesn't have the volume that we want. Moving off Landers because of the KJ Jefferson news, is Lovett a good play?
Yeah, Lovett's fine.
Yeah, I would agree. Pierre, with the potential injury to Quentin Johnston, Darius Day, or Ladd McConkey on FanDuel.
Probably Ladd.
I would say Ladd too. It's pretty close though.
Yes.
All right, let's get to this last game, and then if there's a little more time, we'll sneak in a couple questions. But we have to. Come on now. You wouldn't let me finish the show without talking about UCF and Tulane. The game of the century, as you're calling it. Tulane's a 1-point favorite at home, 54.5-point total. Get this team to the New Year's Bowl. Talk to me. Harvey for UCF. Who else do we want to target here?
Harvey for sure. He's hyper efficient. This guy rules. And his workload is increasing. I think they're probably going to just, I don't know what you call it, like double down on him when they actually need him in games, which this should be one of them. It's essentially their Super Bowl here to get to the AAC championship if they're going to go. So this is a really good spot for him overall. Love Harvey. The receivers are good GPP plays for this team too. We've seen really good volume from O'Keefe. We've seen pretty good volume for Baker when he's healthy. I have interest in all those players. It's just tough because you don't know who's going to play quarterback. I don't know if it's going to be Reese Plumlee. We'll wait and see on that. I don't have a great feel on it, to be honest.
It is tough. I mean, we really don't know. Harvey's certainly a name, as you already mentioned. Is there anything else on the UCF side?
I don't think so.
I mean, the quarterback situation does render it difficult to project kind of what's going on.
Elite sort of pivot spot if you're down.
That's a good point. Certainly, you can tap into some serious upside with these guys. On the other side, Tulane, who's just an awesome team. Spears, Pratt, who is it? Is it anyone, or is this just a team that's going to rely on defense and they're not a great play?
Yeah, Spears is fine, I think. His volume is really good. I wouldn't be too concerned about last week. Last week, they got up pretty early in the game, and then the rest of their the second half, their ancillary backs were carrying the ball a lot. So I'm not too worried about that. I can see why you might be, but honestly, I think it's fine to use Spears. He's the only guy I probably want, though. Just a nasty rotation everywhere else.
Yeah, it is very difficult. And as cool as this game's going to be, I don't think it's the best of the games that we've talked about, and the total kind of reflects that. So I get it. Got a couple questions queued up for you. I do want to say very quickly, we've talked about a lot of really good stuff. I'll give you one more, and this is right in your domain because you're the man behind the scenes powering all the tools that we have. College basketball has started. I know the season's only 4 days old. I know everyone's thinking about football, but if you want to get in, you can get in for $1 this week for the first week of college basketball DFS with the promo code CBB is back. We can drop a link into chat. It's expiring. It's right there on the screen. Projected fantasy points, player usage data, which we'll be populating. Certainly get into our Discord chat. I've been betting college basketball already. There's something that doesn't make sense because I'm beating these closing lines by 3 points and I'm getting blasted. And then I'm betting games and I'm losing 3 points and I'm winning in a runaway. Everything is drunk in college basketball. So you need these tools. $1 with the promo code CBB is back. Save the money. Come on in for the week and check us out now. Is KJ in? No, he is not.
He's out officially.
He is out. Would you play Gibbs and Quorum together? I think that's fine.
Yeah.
Worthy or Perry on FanDuel?
Worthy,
yeah. $6,600 running back on FanDuel.
Man, I don't have that handy.
66. I mean, I'm looking right now.
I'm editing my CSV. Sorry.
Yeah, no, that's fine. That's pretty cheap. The problem is Harvey's 67.
What price is Elijah Green? I forget.
Let's go to the videotape. He's 73. You're really drawing pretty thin at that price point. I would probably try to find $100
down there.
Yeah, it's tough. Vibe is bad in Fayetteville. Yeah, man, people are not.
The vibe is bad in Fayetteville.
Perry and Schrader, Bryce Ford Wheaton, and RJ Harvey.
The former.
Yeah, I would agree. Mayan Williams and Mims or Harvey and Ibuka on FanDuel. I'd go with
Williams side.
Yeah, the Williams side. Just because he really should have a day, even if it's snowing. I don't think that that's really going to matter. And again, I do want to echo what you said late in the show about the late swap. Some of these injuries, the KJ Jefferson game and that stuff, that's kicking off at noon. We're going to get information leading up to these 3:30 games and whatnot. And you need to take advantage of that when we get it. The easiest way, of course, is to be in our premium Discord. But if you have questions at Matt_Gajewski, you can tweet me and then I will answer, but I probably won't have the information for you. But you can follow me nonetheless, just because I'm the one suggesting this. Give us how much Jalen Hyatt. He's definitely in play. I think that Tillman's the better receiver there right now. Landers and JT Daniels versus Harvey and Brown. Harvey and Brown for me.
Same.
Yeah, that's a weird one for various reasons, but we have done it. The last thing we have to do, I'm going to ask you guys to push us over 100 likes. Come on. We went through a lot. I know you're going to do it. We appreciate you. We get to over 100 likes every week. We only need a couple of you to press that like button on your way out. We really do appreciate it. A crazy day here at Stokastic, from NBA to college football to MMA. I cannot wait for this card. I'm going to be watching live before lock in just a couple hours here on this very channel. So for me, for Matt, for Mike behind the glass, I think we've done it. We've accomplished all our goals as the clock ticks down to lock. Just want to say thanks again. If you have any information, you have any questions on those promos, they are in the description of these videos. Go there, read about them, and take advantage. Build your bankroll through the promos across the entire industry, and come back next week for more. Good luck, everyone. Enjoy all the games and all the sports today. And of course, we will see you next week for another college football live before lock.